This is Cheryl Manley from Sharing Love of Paper. I'm so glad you could join me for another card making class today. Today I'll be talking about a couple more fun ways to use paper. One shows adding ink, the other uses half-inch strips of paper, which can be great for using up paper scraps. I'll be showing a new fun fold card that I'm calling a pillar gate fold, which folds flat for mailing but can pop into a 3D card when opened. The paper pack that I'm using is one called Botanical Textures, which is made up of black and white prints. I use one 4x6 panel for the first card and two of the same size but different papers for the second. This paper has been discontinued, but the new catalog that just came out has a lovely paper pack that would work well for these techniques. It's called Artisan Sketched Garden and has several floral prints that would be so much fun to use this way. Another new one you could try if you want a paper that is just leaves would be this paper from the beautiful Ordinary Life paper pack. Check them out using the links below. So on to my first card. Since this paper consists only of leaves, I decided to pick a green color and color the leaves in with my Stampin' Blends markers. In this case, I chose to go with a soft pastel color called Soft Seafoam. Any color green would work, but your finished project will have a different feel if you go with a darker color. I chose the lightest of the two soft seafoam markers and used it to just color in my leaves, including the shading. Since there is shading in the print, I decided I really didn't need to go back with the darker color, though I certainly could have used it for shading. When all was colored in, I trimmed 3/4 inch off the top, as I so often do. Then I inked the edges of both with black ink. I used soft seafoam cardstock for my card blank, and what I've done instead of folding it in half like a standard card was to score 2 1/8 on each end and fold the ends in to meet in the middle. This forms a basic gatefold card. I took my cut 4 by 5 1/4 inch panel and cut it in half vertically to give me two pieces that were 2 by 5 1/4. I added these panels to the front of my card, aligning the uninked edges with the edge of each flap. I just put that 3/4 inch strip on the inside of my card. So this is my base card. Then I just made a simple focal for it. This stamp was one I found in one of my old stamp sets called Forever Fern, but you could use any leaf stamp that you have on hand. If you don't have one already, you might try the set called Greenery Lane for some fun leaf shapes. Again, check below for links. I just stamped that and then colored it in with the same Stampin' Blend marker I used for the background paper. The flowers are stamped using the Pretty Florals stamp set. As of this recording, they are on a last chance sale. There are matching dies for them, but I didn't want the narrow white border, so fussy cut them. It's a 2-step stamp, so I stamped the line art with Berry Burst ink and then the fresh freesia for the solid background. I just fussy cut them and added them with mini Stampin' Dimensionals after I stamped my sentiment. I matted the small white panel on soft seafoam cardstock. Since I only want to attach the focal to the left panel, I put it in place and drew a line with my pencil to show me where I wanted the glue. I just added the glue to that side and centered it on the card front, making sure there was no stray glue that got onto the right side. So there's my first card. I could add a bit of bling, and I'm thinking a few little black pieces would look really good. I could easily create those using rhinestone basic jewels and a black Sharpie marker. I'll set this aside for now and start the next card, but may well come back and add some bling. Okay, this next card is a little more interesting. I call it a pillar gatefold, and you'll need a piece of cardstock that is 5 1/2 by 11 to create the card base for this one. It's a little bit more complicated, so I've drawn some pencil lines on this piece to try to show you the score lines you'll need. Starting from one end, I scored the cardstock at 2 1/8, 6 3/8, 6 7/8, 9 1/4, 9 3/4, 10 1/4, 10 3/4. Then I rotated it this way to create my card. This first fold, now on the right, is 2 1/8, which is what you'd have for a standard gatefold. Here's my actual card base. I made it in black because I thought it would look good with the black and white papers that I'm using. So this folds in, this folds over like this, and then these fold around to form a hollow column or pillar. I put glue just on this narrow piece, then fold it in to glue it in place. It works well if you tuck that narrow piece under and fold it flat so that 2 half-inch sections are seen from the front and 2 from the back. Then fold it the other way, making sure it folds well that way. When we're done, that hollow column supports the inside of the pop-up panel. So that gives a structure like this, but it's one that can fold down for mailing. You mail it flat like that, and your recipient can fold it back up when they get it so it can easily be displayed. So there's my base card. For this card, we'll be using a bunch of half-inch strips to decorate, which makes it ideal for using up leftover bits of paper. However, I'm actually using 2 4x6 panels because in the paper pack I'm using, there were 2 identical papers except that they were reversed. One is white on black and one is black on white. I chose to play with that fun detail, but if your 2 papers aren't identical, it doesn't matter. Just try to have one that is lighter and one that is darker. You actually could just use one paper panel if it has a dark pattern on one side and a light one on the other, though you might need a little more paper for the left side. I'm not sure since I didn't try it with one panel. If yours are not the same image, you might want to make adjustment to the right side of the card, which I'll mention later. For the right side of the card, I cut a piece of white cardstock that was 1 7/8 by 5 1/4 for my mat. I cut 1 inch off the top of my panels, so they were 4 inches by 5 inches, setting aside the 1-inch strips for the inside of the card. Then I cut 1 5/8 off each panel, giving me 2 pieces that were 5 inches tall and 1 5/8 inches wide. I sliced a half-inch strip from the side of each of these, leaving a slightly wider piece for the center. Then I swapped the centers, taking the black one out of here and put it here, took the white one from there, put it there, so I have 2 panels. I just taped the strips together and chose one that I matted for this side. I'll just quickly glue that in place. Depending on how they look together, if your papers are not identical, you might choose to cut all 3 strips to 1/2 inches and leave a little space between them on the mat rather than taping them together. If this were a standard gatefold, I could just glue this other piece here to create an interesting card. But I'm going to do something different for this side today, so I'll save this piece for another card. I have a piece of white cardstock that's 2 1/8 by 5 1/4. That will be my mat for the left side. Then I have a piece of black that is 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. I'll use it to build my half-inch strips on. It's the same height as the white cardstock, but 1/4 inch narrower. Now this is hard to see on black cardstock, but starting from the top, I put a pencil mark every half inch on each side. Now for the pattern paper. I took the pieces that were left, rotated them to cut them crosswise, and cut a bunch of 1/2 inch strips. This gave me a bunch of strips that were 1/2 by 2 3/8 from each panel. Using strips from one color scheme, I glued the first one in place so the bottom of it ran from the first half-inch mark on the left side to the second half-inch mark on the right side. Keeping the same angle, I skipped the next half-inch mark on each side and lined up the bottom of the next strip at the next half-inch mark on each side. I did this all the way down. Before I try to show the next step, I'll just glue a couple in place here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I glue this to the first and second marks, then skip a mark on each side and glue the next. I would just do that all the way down. Then I come back with the other color of strips and glue them the other way. I glue from the start of the second one to the end of the top one like this. I again glue them all the way to the bottom. That works fine, except this first one started part way down. I'll need to finish by gluing one part way like this. Fix the bottom in a similar way. Then trim all the excess by turning it over and using the black cardstock as a cutting guide. After I trimmed all my pieces, this is what I ended up with. Isn't that cool? It's such a different look. People look at it and say, "How did you do that?" But it really was quite easy, just gluing pieces at an angle. And though these papers were identical except for color, you don't need that. Experiment with various pattern paper combinations. I'll go ahead and glue this to the mat. If you look closely, you can see that on my finished piece, I actually started with the darker pieces first, then added the lighter. And my example started with the lighter, then added the darker. It doesn't matter. You just want to be consistent. Now each end is a little different because there was an extra 1/4 inch at the bottom of the panel. Pay attention to how you want to orient that. You could, of course, have cut the black piece to 5 inches tall and had the white mat all around, and you wouldn't have had a weird 1/4 inch. Either way works, you just get a slightly different look. Now all I need to finish this is some kind of a focal. This is interesting enough that I'll probably just add a sentiment of some kind on this side and call it done. I do want to go ahead and finish the inside. Anytime you use a dark piece of cardstock for your card base, you want to add a piece that is lighter in color so you can write on it. I usually cut this panel to 4 by 5 1/4, and that's what I've done here. And then I just have these pieces saved for the inside. I cut one of the 1-inch strips in half and am matting each on a piece of black that is 3 1/4 by 4 inches. I simply glued the paper to the mat, then glued each to the inside panel, top and bottom. I'm just eyeballing it. You can measure it if you want to be exact, but eyeballing usually works for me. So there's the basic card. I think black and white can be so stunning. Another really fun thing to do is to add just a pop of color to your focal. I really like red or aqua, but most colors work. In this case, I think I'll stick to black and white. I'll go off camera to finish this and be back. Okay, I'm back with finishing touches for both of these. I had talked about using rhinestone basic jewels and coloring them with a black Sharpie. That's what I've done here. I'll just use my Take Your Pick tool to move them to my card focal. I could put them in the center of my flowers, but I think I'll just scatter them around a bit to mimic the fact that there are black dots in the background paper. That creates another visual triangle. I'd have liked that one to be over a bit more, but I can't move it now, so I guess it's done. Now for this one. I took another of the Forever Ferns stamps like I used here, only I didn't color it. I added a sentiment and a black bow. I think this card is really striking. As I look at it, I'm realizing this would make a really nice sympathy card. So off camera, I created a matted sympathy sentiment using stamps and dies from the discontinued mixed labels set and glued it on top. Check the close-ups at the end of the video. I think it's even better with that change. I do hope you've enjoyed this video class. You can check the description below for links to some of the materials used in this video and a general link for shopping for Stampin' Up! Products with me as your demonstrator for those of you who live in the United States. And each month you make a purchase with me, as long as you've chosen to be contacted, you'll receive an email of that month's class cards in PDF form as my gift to you. As always, as an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to have you choose me as demonstrator when you make purchases from Stampin' Up! I would earn a small commission on any purchases you make, but that would not affect your price. And if you click that thumbs up, leave me a comment, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, you'll make my day. Have a great one.